welcome to a brand new Xtreme Chunk Locked account, and at the moment I have absolutely no idea where I'm going to be heading. We're currently fresh off of Tutorial Island, so there's one thing that needs to be done before absolutely anything. So as you can see, we've currently got 25 potential starting chunks, each of which represents one of the bank spaces because we are having a bank to start off with. So without further ado, let's get the first chunk rolled. Here we go. Okay, and it's going to be the Grand Tree. We're starting off with the gnomes. So as we're heading to the actual starting place, there's a few things to go through, as this isn't just any regular Runescape playthrough. With an Xtreme Chunk Locked account, there are some self-enforced rules, with the idea being that you complete everything that you can while staying within the overall chunk boundaries, meaning I will need to get the highest level required to make or use the best available items without leaving the chunk, as well as obtaining the best in slot gear that I can. For this Grand Tree start, there are 5 specific levels that need to be focused. 15 woodcutting, as we do have access to a woodcutting axe, 10 defending, and 27 fletching to be able to create and wield an oak shield, 30 attack to be able to use an adamant two-hander, and finally the highest starting level required to get is 65 cooking to be able to make a pineapple pizza. In terms of best in slots, there isn't that much available straight away, but I do need to get a set of robes from one of the shops. And to finish up the overall chunk, I will need to start and get as far as possible in the Grand Tree quest, as well as complete a couple of diary tasks that shouldn't take too long. And we are here. Just one more thing that I need to do. From now on, anything in the grey area is completely out of bounds, so let's have a quick look around and see what we have access to. Plenty of regular trees and a few oaks, which will be key to some of the early goals. And I also have potentially one of the greatest starting shops available for one of these grinds, which gives access to 4 of the current best in slot items, including buyable arrows, tip bolts, and mithril arrow tips for when feathers actually do become available. Alongside the weapon shop, there is also the general grocers, which has the supplies needed to make one of the most hit point dense foods in the entire game, and the reason for one of the chunk goals being to make a pineapple pizza, which, considering there is a guaranteed combat grind needed within the next 3 chunks, having some high healing food will actually make things a lot easier. As the grind officially starts, this is just a bit of a pre-warning that I'm not an expert at this game myself, and there will be plenty of mistakes made. And I mean to start as I go on by making a mistake at the first opportunity given, because when I was doing a bit of research on the Grand Tree chunk itself, for whatever reason, I saw this as a loot table for the gnomes, thinking that it was a very decent way to make some early money, without scrolling up just a little bit and noticing that I was looking at the thieving list, which I'll not have access to for a very long time. So after the senseless slaughter of a few gnomes, my next thought came to how do I actually make money at the Grand Tree? The gnomes' actual loot table is just bones, so there's no money that I can make from actually killing anything. So it must mean there are some lootable items that I can sell. There's a single natural item spawn that can be sold in the Grand Tree, and it is this cocktail shaker, which happens to sell for a grand total of 1 coin. So I just got on with it, proceeded to collect a couple of these, as well as starting the Grand Tree quest to complete the first chunk goal. After a few collections, I happened to hover over this cabinet, and it turns out that I can actually collect unlimited cooking utensils and sell them for much more than the cocktail shakers, with each of the gnome cooking utensils selling for 5 coins each. My plan now is to fill up on these supplies and sell full inventories across multiple worlds to make the coins that I need to get my levels. And while doing so, my next realization hit. I need to buy every single thing for cooking level 65, so surely there has to be something better that I can do, and there is, with the key being the gnome delivery service. However, I'd not made that realization yet, so I sold a bunch of these and went and bought some of the best in slots, those being both axes, a bow, and some arrows. With the new axe in hand, I decided to start chopping some trees while my HP was regenning, and for now, as we do have access to arrow tips from the shop, I will be making all logs into arrow shafts for banking future fletching XP. When I got to level 6 woodcutting, I did sell the iron axe back to the shop as it's no longer needed, and got back to chopping and fletching in between, taking out a few gnomes, until I finally got to level 15 woodcutting, which marks a big milestone in the account as this unlocks oak trees, which will actually be the best tree I have access to all the way to both level 75 woodcutting and level 75 fletching, as to get out of the stronghold there is a guaranteed magic tree in the way. With the first skilling goal out of the way, I did go back to selling some utensils. I also got a strength potion from the very first random of the account. The plan with selling is to collect full inventory and hot wheels to get the most out of each inventory as possible, to be able to build up a decent cash stack so that I can go ahead and buy a lot of the requirements to get to 65 cooking. While doing so, I did get a Prison Pete event for the very first XP lamp of the account, which without much thought I did put into farming, as it is generally a hard skill to train when it comes to these types of accounts. However, once I got to just under 8k coins, I finally made the realization that I could use the Gnome Restaurant minigame to make coins. But to be able to access that, I did need to get to 29 cooking first so that I could do the tutorial. So started making the batter, bowls and crunchies needed for the final gnome meals. Now on the last inventory needed for level 29, it's taken just under 1k coins to do, and this is the overall result of how many were needed. But with level 29 out of the way, it's now time to start with the actual gnome restaurant. The first thing to do is speak with a loved Jan, who asks us to make a toad crunchy and also gives us the ingredients needed to do so. So to start, we prepare the half-baked crunchy as well as cook the result, and finally add the equileaf on top. After handing that in, he gives us the ingredients to make a chocolate chip crunchy, and next up is a toad batter, of which I unfortunately burnt, which sent me into a 20-minute spin because I thought I had messed up my best money making strategy in this chunk. Because for those unaware, I actually don't have access to toad's legs yet. They spawn in the pond, which is just outside of my chunk boundaries. So I'd spent a little bit of time scouring the wiki to see if there was a way of getting around the issue, but there was nothing in sight. At this point, my only other option was to try the other half of the minigame. Just a quick pause right here, as anybody with an eagle eye might have just seen that when I went back to talk to Gianni, he was actually asking about chocolate chip crunchies for some reason, which even after reading up on the whole gnome restaurant thing after this, I'm still unsure as to why he was. Either way, it does mean that I could have continued by recreating the crunchies. But to continue with the theme of the episode, I did miss it and went to talk to Blurberry for the other half of the tutorial. Fortunately, everything on this side can be done by purchasing items from the shop directly, so even if there was a misclick, there's no way of failing. Firstly, we need to make a fruit blast. Second up is a pineapple punch. After this is a wizard blizzard. And to finish off the drink tutorial, we need a short green guy. So after remaking the chocolate chip crunchies for Jan, he did give me the supplies needed to make the toad batter, which fortunately didn't burn this time, after which he asked for a cheese and tomato batter, which worst case I can actually rebuy the ingredients from the shop for this, but I did manage to cook this without burning it, finally opening up the full minigame, and luckily we can do the first delivery for a fruit blast for Gulluk. So now for a brief overview of the gnome restaurant minigame. There are a total of 13 different food that can be asked for and 7 different drinks, of which I have access to everything but the 3 toad meals due to the lack of toad's legs. That's the good side. The bad part is that I only have access to 7 of the easy deliveries and I don't have access to any of the hard deliveries. And if I do end up getting an order I can't do, I'm locked out for 6 minutes. So the plan for now is to focus on the deliveries where possible, and I will be training the 3 other focus skills in the downtime between orders. But with the first delivery done, that is another chunk task complete. Jumping back in at an important milestone of 15 fletching, which does mean that I can now fully switch over to oak trees. For the last 5 levels I did switch to longbows to speed things up a little bit, but now it's time to fully switch back to shafts with the oak logs. And with this delivery I can finally claim my reward token, which will be key to making this grind a lot easier in the future, as once I can collect 10 stored deliveries within this, after 120 trips I'll be able to re-roll the task given at any time, avoiding the 6-minute cooldown. We got our first mystery box random, hoping for the myth scimitar, but we only get a single body rune. The first evil bob random of the account for level 7 fishing, and with this kill that's level 20 attack, meaning I can now get the mithril battle axe for the best DPS weapon I will have access to in this chunk. For a quick update on the skill levels at the moment, currently we're at level 22 fletching, so not far away from the level 27 chunk goal. I will continue to train fletching going forward in preparation for the magic chi chunk coming up shortly. I haven't had the best luck when it comes to the deliveries at the moment, so we're only at 32 cooking, and the highest level at the moment is 34 wood cutting. The combat stats are coming up nicely with 16 hit points, 13 prayer, 20 attack and 11 strength, and I will now be switching to strength training for a little bit just to get my max hits up now that I have access to the mithril weapons. And that's the second fishing random of the account for level 10 fishing. I did get a clue nest while chopping oaks for the first beginner clue of the account, but I won't have access to steps to complete them for quite a while, so it got left to despawn. And I've finally made the decision on what to do with this lamp that's been in my inventory for a little bit of time now. After a little bit of theory crafting, no pun intended, I am going to be lamping my crafting to level 10 as the first priority, as before leaving the stronghold I will have access to magic trees, flax and a spinning wheel, which will give me full access to be able to fletch my own magic short bows, which on an account like this will be absolutely huge. Here's an important milestone for the account of level 27 fletching for the chunk goal of making an oak shield, and after getting 20 strength I got 10 defense to actually wield the shield, fully marking that off as one of the chunk goals. And the first maze random of the account was actually very useful and gave me over 500 feathers, and while in general random event items are not going to be part of the chunk requirements, I do feel it's within the spirit of the game to actually add fletching a mithril arrow to the chunk goals, given I now have the ability to do so. So I will add 45 fletching to the list of things to do, and with this that's level 30 attack and will be the final kill of this chunk so far, as I don't need to do any more combat skills at the moment, and it has taken almost all of the current budget, but that is the adamant two-hander for the chunk goal. This is what the account looks like after over 1400 gnome kills. Of course we've got the 30 attack, there's also 24 hit points, 23 prayer, 20 strength and 10 defense. And to wrap up another chunk goal while we're at it, I have purchased a full set of the turquoise gnome robes, leaving just 2 official tasks of making a chocolate bomb and a pineapple pizza, as well as the additional task of fletching a mithril arrow until we can actually roll the next chunk. And after a little bit of research into possible paths after leaving the stronghold, I have realised that it's highly unlikely that I'll have access to a regular source of feathers prior to the point of getting the ranging guild, and so from level 30 fletching onwards I will be making oak longbows to get the best XP rates that I can, and I will be needing just under 2000 to be able to finish the level 45 goal that I've set myself. And with this final oak log, that does complete the additional chunk goal of level 45 fletching, and I have already bought a few arrow tips, so that there is the mithril arrow fletched for the additional chunk goal. Unfortunately I don't have access to a bow that can use mithril arrows at the moment, but in theory that should be unlocked fairly soon once I unlock a couple of more chunks and with a little bit of lamping. I'm currently only 11 deliveries away from filling up my reward token, which will see a drastic increase in the coins that I get from being able to complete multiple deliveries once I'm able to actually start re-rolling the tasks instead of waiting. We've got ourselves an Evil Bob fishing random for level 13 fishing, and back-to-back Evil Bob randoms for level 15 fishing. And I finally get a delivery I can do to get my 10th reward point, meaning that I can now pick and choose deliveries and hopefully get some good income coming through. And my plan is to use plain pizzas to level 65, because once I get to level 65 I can simply add pineapples and get a decent stockpile of good food. This is a cooking chart for plain pizzas, and they don't actually stop burning until level 68. And to get to level 65 from where I am at the moment, it'll be roughly 3,000 successful cooks, meaning that I'll need to buy the ingredients needed for approximately 3,500 to 4,000 pizzas. A pot of flour is 10 coins, and both the cheese and tomato are 4 coins each. And at the moment, I don't currently plan on getting a bucket per pizza, so around 100 coins will cover the cost of the buckets. But if I work on the assumption that I'm going to burn the higher percentage, that will mean that I need approximately 72,000 coins just to buy the raw ingredients. So the plan moving forward now is to grind out the gnome deliveries until I have about 60,000 coins saved, and at that point I will reevaluate the XP needed, because I will be getting a small amount of cooking XP while doing the deliveries themselves. An important level here of 42 cooking, and I got the ingredients needed to complete the penultimate chunk task of making a chocolate bomb within the Grand Tree. The first Chaos Runes here on the account from a Prison Pete event. A bit of a re-evaluation here, as I have been doing the gnome deliveries for a couple of days and I have come to the conclusion that they are just terrible for coins. I ran a roughly 30-minute test at full efficiency and I only got 700 total coin profit, and while it's efficient in terms of getting the most cooking XP from the food made due to the bonus XP drop for deliveries, I am going to be significantly quicker raiding the kitchen cabinet and selling the items to the shop, as after a short test it only took me 5 minutes roughly to get 1,000 coins. The downside is that I will be jumping worlds, so I won't get as many random events, meaning the crafting goal is temporarily on hold, but I do think overall it's going to be worth me changing my approach back to the cabinet for now. The major problem that slows the restaurant down is the way that you actually get the orders, as for whatever reason, once you have filled the reward token, while you can re-roll the orders on demand, Jagex have decided that you can no longer one-click to get an order. You have to go through this entire dialogue every time, meaning that if you're unlucky you can actually spend minutes alone just re-rolling for orders. And due to some of the limitations, that has happened several times already to myself. So just to keep a bit of sanity, I am going to go back to selling to the shop. From my current level to level 65, I will need to successfully cook 2,660 pizzas, and considering some of them will get burnt along the way, I'm going to start my goal off at getting the ingredients needed to make 3,000 pizzas, meaning I need to get 54,000 coins. I'll make and cook all of those, and then I'll see how close that actually gets me to the finish line. A huge level right here, as that's level 2 crafting from lamps alone, and if I don't get a dunce along the way, that puts me only 23 lamps away from my goal of level 10 crafting. Considering it took me 9 lamps to get the first level, that's not a million miles off. And now, after a couple of days of semi-efficient world hopping, this inventory will give me over 54,000 coins. So it's now time to start getting the ingredients ready for the pizzas. My plan to do so is to buy the full stock of tomatoes and cheese and fill the rest of my inventory with flour, and then hop worlds and repeat. Seeing as I have just ran into one, I figure it's probably worth pointing out that there is a weird bot farm running at the Grand Tree at the moment, which may make getting the ingredients a little bit more annoying, as they are buying the full stocks of fruit, flour and cheese. They all have similar stats of 40 defense, 45 range, and then a small assortment of skilling levels, so I've just been reporting any that match that profile. If anybody does know what this is actually for, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, as it's something I've been wondering about for a while, as surely they can't just be buying and selling the store stock. And with this final inventory, I now have 3,000 of everything I need, as well as 69 nice coins to spare, which wasn't by creation. I just misclicked buying an Equileaf along the way. Fortunately, my water source isn't too far away from the bank and is on the same level, and I can create the pizza bases while walking back to the bank. Got a maze random here for some more feathers, and somewhat ironically, now that I don't need the coins, I do get 2 sets. However, that does take me perfectly from 69 to elite coins for all the gamers out there, so it is meant to be. Prison Pete event right here for the first lore runes on the account, which could come in clutch in the future. These 3 are the final bases that I need to make a total of 3,000, and it was a lot less intense than I thought it would be initially. So now I'll start making the raw pizzas fairly quickly, and the decision really is whether I do 14 or 9 per inventory with an extra banking session. But if everything does go to plan, it'll be within seconds for yourself. And adding the final set of cheese now, that is 3,000 pizzas prepared. So now it's all about the luck and let's see how close I can get to level 65 from here. If I was to go all the way, I can only burn a maximum of 340 pizzas, and the cooking rate will get better as I progress through them. But to start with, that is 7 out of 28 burnt. And if I continue at this rate, it would be around 410 pizzas short of the overall goal. So hopefully that rate goes up dramatically. I have been able to go through all of the pizzas fairly quickly, and this is the 3,000th pizza cooked, and I was actually getting around 140,000 XP per hour, which is likely the most I will see in terms of XP rate on this account for a long time. However, there's one question that remains of how many pizzas were burnt. Unfortunately, it was too many for level 65, so I will need to buy a few more ingredients to finish this off. I went under rate just before 2,000 pizzas were successfully cooked. However, fortunately I do have a small amount of coins from random events while cooking, so should have enough to finish this off without resorting to more cutlery selling. As long as none of these 3 pizzas burn, this is the final step for level 65 cooking, meaning I just need to add some pineapple for the chunk goal, and I actually have some in the bank from when I misclicked previously. And with that right there, that is the final chunk task complete. And as you can see, I wasn't a million miles away with my initial prediction, only needing an extra 53 sets of ingredients. So with everything now complete on the chunk, here's a quick overview of the account. Stats wise, I just missed out on the total level of 300 by 1 level, and I am actually only a single lamp away from level 3 crafting, level 15 fishing just from Bob random events, and then on top of that there is of course the levels needed for the overall chunk goals. Total playtime for this single chunk is just about to hit 5 days, but I've not been anywhere near 100% efficient, and I want to say that probably around a day or more will have just been AFK while I was doing other things. It's currently showing a bank value of over 1 million coins with various items from random events, the remnants of my normal delivery setup, some random event gear, and then the big value tab here with the pizzas, which is almost 1 million coins on its own. If you have somehow made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. I don't have any goals in mind, and I'm only really making this video because I started binge watching some other creators like Limpwork, Josh, and around 10 others that have since popped up on the timeline. But I do feel like there is one that specifically deserves its own special shout out, which is of course Xtreme Gnome, for probably obvious reasons. When I actually started this account I wasn't aware, but they are one of the ones that ended up on my timeline after starting. As with myself, they also started with a Grand Tree start, so I figured it was worth a special shout out for them having the same start as myself. But for now, I'll throw it to Livecoms me for the first chunk roll of the account. So I'm here on the chunk picker that I'm sure if you've stumbled across this video you are well aware about, but if not, it will be linked in the description below. First off, just to finalise the chunk tasks, 45 fletching, the diary task for the chocolate bomb, and the big one, 65 cooking for the pineapple pizza. As you can see bottom right, it has taken me 57 days to actually do this whole thing, as I've only been able to do a couple of hours here and there, but with no more stalling, it's time to run the chunk picker for the first time. Ideally, I would like the gnome ball field first, as it would give me access to the stronghold straight away. And so I haven't got that, and it looks like I am making a beeline for the exit. So the next chunk will be the agility course. Okay, so task-wise, they are mostly focused around Neve for Slayer, which I will very likely get Slayer locked pretty much almost immediately on, but this does start the major combat grind as I need to get to level 85 to be able to actually start a task with Neve. But the big task to work on for myself will be the 87 fletching for the magic shield. This chunk does however unlock a new tree for myself, as there is I believe a single willow tree spawn in this chunk. I also have the fruit and regular tree patches, but farming itself will be passive until I get a reliable source of seeds. So to start off with, I will just need to rake a patch and that's it. Just in general, feel free to let me know of any improvements or changes you'd like to see in the comments below. Thank you and goodbye.